Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into something truly unsettling, the creepy practice of wearing corpse shoes made from human skin. Picture yourself in a torchlit cave, the air thick with damp earth and something sharper, like decay's faint perfume. You're barefoot, and at your feet lies a pair of shoes, stitched from a material that looks too familiar. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this history lesson without a shiver or two. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of history, where the line between reverence and horror blurs. The practice of crafting shoes from human skin kicks off in the ancient world, long before written records could pin it down. Think early Bronze Age, around 3000 BCE, in the shadowed corners of Mesopotamia or the Eurasian steppes. Archaeological digs, mainstream stuff, like those from the British Museum's collection, shave unearthed leather shoes from this era, some suspiciously unlike animal hide. The quirky tidbit: a few Sumerian burial sites hint at shoes made from the deceased, tucked into graves as offerings. Why? You're about to find out. Imagine you're a mourner at a funeral in an ancient village. The body's wrapped in linen, but the feet are bare. Nearby, a priest mutters incantations holding shoes crafted from the skin of the departed. These aren't just footwear. They're a bridge to the afterlife. The belief was that wearing a loved one's skin kept their spirit close, guiding you through life's dangers. Sounds sweet, till you realize the skinning part wasn't exactly optional. Historians still argue whether this was consensual or a grim tax on the dead, with no clear answer. You can almost feel the weight of those shoes now, can't you? They're not light like your sneakers. The human leather, feels dense, almost alive under your toes. Joking aside, who'd wear these without checking for curses first? The process wasn't random, either. Families chose specific people, warriors, shamans, or elders whose strength they wanted to carry forward. It's like inheriting grandma's recipe book, but, way creepier. Let's linger on the ritual. You're watching the ceremony, the air heavy with incense and grief. The shoes are presented to the chosen wearer, usually a son or disciple. You notice the stitches, screwed and even but deliberate. Each pair tells a story: a warrior's scars, a mother's weathered hands. The crowd believes these shoes hold power, like a battery for the soul. You're skeptical, but the vibe is intense. Would you slip them on? Probably not without a hazmat suit. Here's a modern aside: ever bought vintage shoes and wondered about their story? Now imagine the tag reading 100% human. Bet you'd pass. Back then, though, this was high honor. The quirky bit resurfaces in myths like the Epic of Gilgamesh, where a hero's companion is buried with skin-bound souls for the gods. It's not proof, but it's a clue this wasn't rare. As you stand there, the firelight flickers. You're starting to get why these shoes mattered. They weren't fashion, they were survival. In a world of constant war and short lives, you'd do anything to keep your ancestors' strength at your heels. Joking again, but maybe check your closet tonight. Any leather looking to lifelike. The practice wasn't universal. Some tribes burned the dead instead, thinking skin shoes trapped spirits. Others, like those in early Anatolia, went all in, with whole families sporting matching corpse ticks. You're wondering how this even started, right? Picture a desperate moment, maybe a drought, a raid, and someone decides the dead skin is their last gift. It's grim, but it's stuck. You're still in that cave, shoes in hand, the priest's eyes lock on yours, urging you to step forward. You hesitate. This is where the story begins, but it's not where it ends. The next step is darker, and you're about to see how these shoes were made. You're still reeling from the cave's heavy air, those eerie corpse shoes clutched in your hands. Now you're stepping into a different scene, a dusty workshop, where the real work happens. The smell hits you first, a mix of tannin, sweat, and something sour you don't want to name. Tools clatter on a wooden bench, and you're about to see how human skin becomes footwear. It's not pretty, but you're here, so let's walk through it. Picture yourself crouching beside an artisan in, say, ancient Scythia, around 700 BC. The guy's hands are calloused, his eyes focused. He's not some creepy villain. He's just doing his job. Mainstream history like finds from the Pazark burials in Siberia shows us leatherwork was an art form back then. Shoes, saddles, even tents were crafted with precision. The quirky tidbit: some of those leather scraps tested positive for human DNA. Yeah, you heard that right. You watch him work. The process starts with a body, usually fresh from a ritual death. Don't wince yet, this was normal. The skin's stripped carefully, think peeling an orange, but slower. The artisan scrapes away fat and tissue, leaving a pale, pliable sheet. You're gagging a little, aren't you? Joking, but I'd need a bucket nearby, too. The skin's soaked in a pit of urine and oak bark, tanning it for weeks. It's not like tanning cowhide. Human skin's thinner, trickier to stretch without tearing. You notice the tools: bone needles, sinew thread, a curved knife that looks too sharp for comfort. The artisan mutters a prayer, maybe to appease the spirit tied to the skin. You're wondering if he's creeped out. Probably nothing's done this 100 times. Historians still argue whether these craftsmen were revered or shunned, like undertakers in old societies. No one's dug up a definitive answer. Let's pause for a modern vibe check. Ever smelled leather at a shoe store? Now imagine that, but with a faint whiff of mortality. You'd probably stick to flip-flops. Back then, though, this was high craft. The skin's dyed, made red with madder root and cut into patterns. You see the artisan tracing a sole, using the deceased's foot as a mold. It's morbidly bespoke, like a tailor-made suit from beyond. The shoes take shape. You're close enough to see the stitches, tight and even, binding the heel to the upper. Some pairs get decorations bits, maybe a carved bone charm. The quirky bit pops up again in folklore. Some tribes believed the shoes locked in the dead's courage, like a magical USB drive. You're skeptical, but the artisan's focus makes you wonder. You're starting to get it. These shoes aren't just objects, they're a process, a labor of grief and respect, or fear. Depends on the tribe. You glance at the finished pair, gleaming faintly in the workshop's dim light. They're beautiful in a haunting way. Joking, but I'd rather wear socks with holes than try those on. Let's linger. The artisan hands the shoes to a mourner, who nods sullenly. You catch a glimpse of the skin's texture, too smooth, too human. The mainstream fact anchors us. Tanning was a cornerstone of ancient economies, with guilds dedicated to it by 1000 BC. But human skin, that was a niche trade reserved for the elite or the desperate. You're wondering who gets to wear these. Warriors, priests? That's next. The workshop's quiet now, save for the scrape of a blade. You feel the weight of what you've seen. It just the craft, but the intent. It's not about fashion. It's about carrying someone forward, literally on your feet. You're not sure you'd sign up for that. The air's getting heavier, and you're ready to step out. But the story's pulling you deeper. You're leaving the workshop, but the shoe's purpose is still unclear. Who slips them on and why? You're about to find out. But it's not as simple as strutting in style. The next step takes you to the wares. And trust me, it's not a casual stroll. You've just left the workshop's grim hustle, the smell of tanning pits still clinging to your clothes. Now you're out in the open, standing on a windswept plain, maybe an ancient Thrace around 500 BC. The air's crisp, and a crowd's gathered for a ceremony. At the center, a warrior kneels, holding those corpse shoes you saw crafted. You're about to learn why someone would actually wear them, and it's not for the aesthetics. Imagine you're right there, dust kicking up around you. The warrior's young, scarred, his eyes locked on the shoes. They're made from his father's skin, a fallen hero. Mainstream history, like Herodotus's accounts of nomadic tribes, tells us footwear was a status symbol in these cultures. Think Scythians or Sarmatians. The quirkier bit: some warriors believed human skin shoes channeled the dead's strength, like slipping on a ghost's resume. You're raising an eyebrow, but the crowd's dead serious. You watch the ritual unfold. The warrior slips the shoes on and the crowd chants slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. He stands taller, as if the shoes are pumping courage into him. The belief was that wearing a kin's skin made you unstoppable in battle, pictured like inheriting a superhero's cape, but way less marvel and more macabre. Joking, but I'd stick to steel-toed boots for my epic fights. Let's dig deeper. You're close enough to see the shoe's details, faint scars on the leather, proof of the father's battles. They're not just shoes, they're a contract. The warriors expected to honor the dead by winning wars. You're wondering if he feels empowered or creeped out. Probably both. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual or psychological. The shoes really work. Or was it placebo on steroids? No one's cracked that yet. Pause for a modern aside. Ever worn a Lucky Charm, like a jersey for game day? Now imagine your charms made from Uncle Bob's hide. Yeah, you'd pass. Back then, though, this was peak loyalty. The shoes weren't random. They came from someone significant, fathers, mentors, even enemies whose strength you wanted to steal. You're starting to see the logic, twisted as it is. The ceremony's heating up. A shaman sprinkles ash over the warrior, muttering about spirits. You catch a whiff of burnt herbs, sharp and dizzying. The shoes aren't just for battle. They're for big moments, councils, even weddings. The quirky tidbit resurfaces in old sagas, like a Persian tale where a prince wears his rival's skin shoes to claim a throne. It's not verified, but it shows how deep this ran. You're feeling the crowd's energy now, their belief in these shoes as talismans. It's not about fashion. It's about legacy. The warrior strides forward, testing the fit. You notice how the shoes mold to his feet, almost alive, joking again, but I'd be checking for ghostly toes wiggling inside. The mainstream fact grounds us. Footwear in ancient armies was critical, with elite units sporting custom gear by 600 BC. Corpse shoes, reserved for the top dogs. Let's linger. You're watching the warrior march off, the crowd cheering. You're wondering what it's like to walk in those shoes, carrying a ghost's weight. It's not just physical, it's emotional. Every step's a reminder of who you've lost or who you've claimed. You're not sure you'd have the stomach for it. The scene's fading, but the shoe's purpose is clearer. They're not just creepy relics, they're power, memory, and obligation stitched together. You're curious about the darker side. Follow us were these and why. The next step takes you to hidden groups, where the practice gets weirder. You're not sure you're ready, but the story's pulling you along. You're stepping away from the warrior's triumphant march, the plains dust still swirling in your mind. Now you're creeping through a moonless night. Somewhere in the Carpathian Hills, around 200 BC, the air's damp, heavy with pine and secrets. You're following a cloaked figure toward a hidden grove, where a circle of hooded people waits. They're not here for a friendly chat, they're part of a cult that treats corpse shoes like sacred relics. You're about to see the practice twist into something even stranger. Picture yourself hiding behind a gnarled tree, heart thumping. The group's chanting, low and guttural, and you spot those shoes, a guy in human skin, gleaming faintly in the firelight. Mainstream history, like Roman records from Pliny the Elder, mentions secretive tribes in Dacia who performed rituals with tainted relics. The quirky tidbit: some of these cults believe corpse shoes let you commune with the dead, like a creepy walkie-talkie. You're not buying it, but the vibe's intense. You inch closer. The leader, a woman with silver-streaked hair, lifts a pair of shoes from a stone altar. They're delicate, almost feminine, unlike the warrior's rugged pair. She slips them on and the chanting stops. The air feels electric, like a storm's brewing. The cult believes these shoes made from a revered elder's skin carry her wisdom. You're wondering if it's spiritual or just a power trip. Historians still argue whether these groups were religious or manipulative, using fear to control followers. No clear winner there. Let's pause for a modern check-in. Ever joined a group with weird traditions like a secret handshake? Now imagine the initiation involves wearing someone's skin. Hard pass, right? Joking, but I'd be sprinting for the hills. Back then, though, this was devotion. The shoes weren't just worn, they were worshipped, passed down through generations like a cursed heirloom. You're watching the ritual deepen. The leader dances, her steps slow, deliberate, as if channeling someone else. You notice the shoe's texture smooth, with faint lines like a palm's creases. They're not random, they're from someone chosen, maybe sacrificed. The quirky bit pops up in whispers from later Greek texts, claiming some cults used enemies' skin to trap their souls. It's not hard proof, but it's chilling. The fire crackles, and you're starting to get why these shoes mattered. They're not just creepy, they're control. The cult uses them to keep members loyal, promising power or cursing defectors. You're feeling the weight of their secrecy, the way it binds this group. Joking again, but I'd be checking my shoes for hidden skin tags after this. Let's linger. The leader's dance slows and she speaks words you don't understand, but the crowd's mesmerized. The shoes are the ritual's heart, tying the living to the dead. The mainstream fact anchors us. Mystery cults were common by 300 BCE, from Eleusis to the Black Sea, blending faith and fear. Corpse shoes, a rare, dark twist, exclusive to the fringes. You're noticing the group's hierarchy now. Only the elite wear the shoes, others just watch, envious or terrified. You're wondering how far this goes. Did they kill for these relics, or was it consensual? The air's getting colder, and you're not sure you want to know. But you're stuck here, peering through the dark. The ritual's winding down. The leader removes the shoes, placing them back on the altar. You catch a glimpse of her feet, calloused, human, oddly normal. The crowd disperses, and you're left with questions. This isn't just about wearing death, it's about owning it. You're ready to leave this grove, but the story's heading somewhere new, somewhere public, where corpse shoes aren't so secret. You've slipped out of the cult's shadowy grove, the chants still echoing in your ears. Now you're stepping into a bustling market square in medieval Europe, around 1300 CE. The air's thick with the tang of smoke, fresh bread, and unwashed bodies. Stalls line the cobblestones, and your eyes catch something unsettling, a merchant hawking shoes that look too pale, too human. You're about to see corpse shoes move from secret rituals to a grim, open trade. Buckle up, this is where things get uncomfortably public. Imagine you're weaving through the crowd, dodging a cart of turnips. The merchant's stall is tucked in a corner, his voice low but sharp as he pitches his wares. These aren't your average boots. Mainstream history, like records from the Hanseatic League, shows leather goods were big business in medieval town: shoes, belts, armor. The quirky tidbit, some chronicles, like a 14th century monk's diary from Bavaria, whisper of flesh shoes sold under the table, made from executed criminals. You're side-eyeing the merchant now, aren't you? You lean closer, pretending to browse. The shoes are displayed discreetly, wrapped in cloth. They're supple, almost glowing, with stitches finer than anything cowhide could manage. The merchant claims they bring luck or protection from spirits. You're not sure if he's a conman or a believer. Historians still argue whether this trade was widespread or just urban legend, with no solid artifacts to settle it. Those shoes didn't exactly come with a made-in-human label. Lets it pause for a modern vibe. Ever haggled at a flea market and wondered about a creepy antique's backstory? Now imagine its shoes, and the backstory's a guillotine. Joking, but I'd stick to knockoff Nikes. Back then, though, some buyers were all in. The customers aren't cultists, they're knights, merchants, even clergy, chasing status or superstition. You're watching a deal go down. A burly man, maybe a soldier, hands over a pouch of coins. The merchant unwraps a personal, maybe a woman's. You catch a whiff of tannin and something sharper, like old blood. The soldier doesn't flinch. He's heard the rumors about corpse shoes warding off curses. The quirky bit resurfaces in folklore. Some believed wearing a criminal's skin transferred their cunning. You're thinking that's a lousy trade for the creep factor. The market's noisehawkers, laughter, a stray dog barking grounds you. You're starting to see how normalized this was. Not everyone bought corpse shoes, but no one's shocked, either. They're like the medieval equivalent of a shady eBay listing. Joking again, but I'd be triple-checking the return policy. The mainstream fact keeps us steady. By 1200 CE, tanning guilds were powerful, regulating leather down to the last hide, human skin off the books, but not unheard of. You're lingering by the stall, noticing details. The shoes vary, some rugged, some dainty, all human. The merchant's got a knack for storytelling, spinning tales about each pair's donor. You're wondering where he gets them. Gallows, plague pits, he's not saying, and you're not asking. The crowd thins as dusk falls, and you feel the weight of this place commerce mixed with death. Let's slow down. You're holding one shoe now, the merchant's eyes daring you to try it on. It's light, softer than you expected, with a faint pattern like a lifeline. You drop it fast. This isn't just a transaction. It's a choice to where someone's end. You're ready to leave this market, but the story's not done. Those shoes are still out there, lingering in history's shadows. You've just stepped away from the medieval market's grim hustle. The merchant's sly grin still burned in your mind. Now you're standing in a quiet museum gallery, somewhere in modern-day London or Berlin 2025. The air's cool, sterile, with a faint hum of climate control. Before you, in a glass case, sit a pair of ancient shoes, human skin. The label confirms. You're about to see how corpse shoes linger in today's world, from dusty displays to heated debates. This is where the past meets your present, and it's not as distant as you'd like. Picture yourself leaning toward the case, the shoes' pale leather catching the soft spotlight. They're small, delicate, maybe from a nomadic tribe circa 100 BC. Mainstream history, like studies from the British Museum, confirms human skin artifacts exist, mostly ritual objects, not everyday wear. The quirky tidbit: a few modern collectors, according to obscure ex-posts, still hunt for these relics, claiming they're cursed art. You're wondering if that's obsession or just a rich person's weird flex. You read the plaque, provenance uncertain, possibly Scythian. The shoes look fragile, but you can't shake the feeling they're watching you. Museums display them as curiosities, but they spark arguments. Some say they belong in public, teaching us about humanity's dark edges. Others, activists, scholarsko for their burial, arguing it's disrespectful to the dead. Historians still argue whether displaying these shoes glorifies or condemns the practice. No consensus, just endless panels at academic conferences. Let's pause for a modern vibe check. Ever scrolled through a creepy Reddit thread about haunted objects? Now imagine one about shoes that might hex you. Joking, but I'd keep my distance from that glass case. Today, corpse shoes are rare, most are lost to time or decay, but they pop up in unexpected places. Private collections, black market auctions, even mislabeled as exotic leather in old estates. You're circling the display, noticing details. The stitches are uneven, the leather cracked but preserved. You imagine the person it came from, a warrior, a priest, maybe a sacrifice. The museum's silent, but your mind's loud with questions. Were these shoes worn with pride or fear? The quirky bit resurfaces in a 2019 X thread, where a user claimed a Berlin museum's human skin shoe moved at night. Probably nonsense, but it's got you glancing at the shadows. The mainstream fact grounds us. By the 19th century, human skin objects like books bound and executed prisoners' hide were studied as anthropodermic artifacts. Corpse shoes, though, stayed obscure, too fragile for most collections. You're starting to see why. They're not just objects, they're ethical landmines. Should you even be looking at them? Or is that complicity in some ancient wrong? Joking again, but I'd need a sage cleanse after this exhibit. You're not alone in the gallery. A curator pauses, clipboard in hand, and you overhear her mention repatriation debates. Some cultures want these artifacts back or destroyed. You're wondering how you'd feel if your ancestors' skin was on display. The air's heavier now, like the shoes carry more than just history. They're a mirror, forcing you to question what respect means when the dead can't consent. Let's linger. You're back at the case, reading a quote on the wall. Humanity wears its past, however grin. It's poetic, but it doesn't settle your unease. The shoes are a bridge to the ancients, but also a reminder of what we've buried. You're ready to step away, but the story's got one last stop where you'll face what these shoes mean for humanity's soul. You're stepping out of the museum's sterile glow, the corpse shoe's eerie presence still prickling your skin. Now you're alone on a quiet hill at dusk, somewhere timeless. the horizon smudged with fading light, the grass whispers under your feet, and you're holding nothing but questions. This is where you reflect on humanity's dance with death's artifacts. We made corpse shoes, why they haunt us still. It's not just history anymore, it's about what these grim relics say about you, about us all. Let's walk this final path together, slow and steady. Picture yourself sitting on the hill, the air cool, carrying a faint scent of earth. You're thinking back to those ancient rituals, the workshops, the warriors, the cults, the markets. Each pair of shoes was a choice to honor, to control, to defy death itself. Mainstream history, like anthropological studies from the 20th century, shows humans have always used the dead's remains, bones, hair, skin to keep them close. The quirky tidbit, in some Pacific Island cultures, as late as the 1800s, human skin relics were worn to borrow spirit's luck, not unlike our corpse shoes. You're wondering if we're really so different now. The sky's deepening, stars pricking through. You're seeing the through line, fear and love tangled together. Those shoes weren't just creepy, they were human, raw, a way to grip what slips away. Historians still argue whether the practice was reverence or exploitation, a tribute or a theft. There's no answer, just the weight of intent. You're feeling it too, aren't you? That pull to remember, to carry someone forward, even if it's messy. Let's bring it home. Ever kept a photo, a ring, a letter from someone gone? It's not skin, but it's the same instinct floating tight to memory. Joking, but I'd bet you're not stitching anyone's hide into your sneakers. The shoes were extreme, but they were US flawed, scared, reaching for meaning. You're picturing them now, from cave to museum, scarred leather, and even stitches, stories sealed in every seam. The hills quiet, save for a distant owl. You're thinking about legacy. Those shoes were a way to say, you're not gone, but they also chained the living to the dead, sometimes literally. The quirky bit lingers in a modern echo. Ex-posts from 2024 debated ethical taxidermy, with some arguing human remains could be art if consented. You're not sure where you stand, but it's the same old dance of deep memory, and what we're willing to carry. The mainstream fact anchors us. By the Renaissance, human skin use faded as science, and religion redefined sacred. Corpse shoes became taboo, buried in history's margins, but they're not gone. You saw them in that museum, felt their pull. They're a reminder. Humanity's never been tidy about grief. Joking one last time, but maybe check your closet for ghosts before bed. You're ready to let this go. The shoes, the rituals, the debates are part of you now, but they don't own you. The hill feels softer, the stars brighter. You're breathing easier, ready to leave this history behind, at least for tonight. The world's quiet now, and you're sinking into the grass. The day's weightlifting, those corpse shoes, with their stitches and shadows, fade like a dream you can't quite hold. They were humanity's attempt to outrun loss, to wear love and fear on their feet. You don't need to judge them, you just need to rest. Picture the hill cradling you, the breeze a gentle on, carrying away the last echoes of leather and bone. Your eyes are heavy, the stars blurring into soft light. You're safe here, wrapped in the present, where the past can't follow. Sleep's calling, warm and deep. Let it take you, sweet dreams.